I have the power! I'm enjoying the pleasant afterglow of watching the new Masters of the Universe live-action film in the theaters, and I really couldn't care less about the negative reviews and poor box office performance. Maybe I'm guilty of some biasness, but this is literally my childhood packed into an entertaining film. But it's more than just the nostalgia, because I think the story's pretty solid and fitting for a He-Man movie. Aside from all my favorite characters in the franchise, the movie also delivered plenty of fun references and Easter eggs, especially for the die-hard fans to pick up on. And in this video, I'll explore every major such instance that caught my attention, as I've lost count of the number of times I've watched this film. The MGM logo featuring Cringer. This is something that we all noticed during the trailer release, and it was quite an innovative addition. When you watch the movie, this is one of the first things that you see. The MGM studio logo, and you'll not see the usual lion here. Instead, the logo features Cringer, He-Man's iconic pet, who turns into the mighty Battle Cat when Adam transforms into He-Man. The inclusion of Cringer is one of my favorite bits in the film, and I love how the Battle Cat adds some comic relief and also jumps into action when required. Queen Marlena's earthly origins. Well, the movie didn't spell it out for you very clearly, but there were enough subtle hints to remind you about the origins of Queen Marlena. In He-Man lore, Queen Marlena is from Earth, and she's an astronaut who comes to Eternia, falls in love with King Randor, and decides to stay back. In the movie, there is something worth noticing during one of the earlier scenes, when a young Adam refuses to go to his training, and his mother convinces him. In the background, you can spot an astronaut helmet, and this is a clear nod to the past life of Marlena, who's probably kept the helmet as a reminder of her earthly origins. Moreover, this is the reason why Marlena asks for Adam to be sent to Earth after Skeletor attacks and threatens to take over. The safekeeping of young Adam is entrusted to her home planet, and you'll also find another reference in the surname used by Adam on Earth, which is Glenn, the same as that of his mother's maiden name. The interesting inclusion of Dian. Of all the former faces, Dian is the one I had trouble remembering. This member of the Eternian Royal Guard is introduced in the film as a tough, no-nonsense lieutenant under Captain Teela, and has a history with Prince Adam because she used to bully him as a child. Now, you might not remember her because she never featured in the cartoon series or the main toy line. However, Dian was there in the He-Man newspaper comic strips that were published during the late 1980s, and I think it's a fun throwback to reintroduce her in a fairly important role. The Man-at-Arms toy reference might ruin your childhood. I think one of the best and most underrated casting choices in the movie is Idris Elba for the role of Duncan, aka Man-at-Arms. And honestly, I really like this version of the character. He starts off as an honorable warrior who tastes defeat and failure after he's unable to stop Skeletor. He turns into a hopeless alcoholic only to find his purpose again after the return of Adam. But there are a couple of interesting Easter eggs that I couldn't help but notice. Firstly, in the movie, his weapon of choice is his mace, and this is the same weapon that his original action figure came with. Also, if you're one of those who wondered what the thing is on Man-at-Arms armor, the answer might not please you. I always used to think it's a battery or an oxygen tank of some sort, but it turns out it's really a flask of alcohol. My childhood memory sure took a battering after finding this out, but like I said, I didn't mind this gritty take on Duncan. The detailing on Evil-Lyn is remarkable. When Skeletor and his forces arrive to take over Eternia, it's a bloody battle, where the forces of Eternia are overwhelmed. Among all his henchmen, one of the first ones I noticed was Evil-Lyn, the scheming sorceress. What I loved was the attention to detail in her appearance, especially when it comes to her hair color. You see, the original toy didn't really reveal her hair color, but in the movie it's shown that she has white hair. For those of you who remember, the original cartoon had a sequence where she removed her helmet, and even there, she had white hair. I guess this is the kind of attention to detail that makes us fans sit back and enjoy a film all the more. Dolph Lundgren's cameo is hard to miss. This cameo is probably one of the nicest moments for those who've grown up watching the original He-Man cartoon series and the 1987 live-action movie. Dolph Lundgren, who plays the role of He-Man in said movie, appears in a fun little cameo, and it's everything that the fans could hope for. During the time that Adam spends on Earth, he goes to a gym to work out, and Dolph Lundgren is his fellow fitness enthusiast. I love his words of advice to Adam as a wholesome passing of the torch moment. And no matter what you think of the 1987 movie, you gotta respect the actor for appearing as a nostalgic connection for the fans. The Fright Zone store means more than you think. In the movie, when Adam is stuck on Earth without his power sword, he desperately looks for it because it's the key for him to go back to Eternia. After he's told by someone online that his sword has been found, he goes to a store called the Fright Zone. Now, this is not a randomly selected name. The Fright Zone is the location of Hordak's lair, and this is the villain that's connected to She-Ra. Surely you haven't missed the post-credit scene featuring her cameo. It actually shows her standing in front of the Fright Zone, and I think it's a remarkable connection. Also, once Adam's inside the store, you can see a Superman comic inside, which is a clear reference to how the Masters of the Universe comics were published by DC Comics, and He-Man has even crossed paths with Superman multiple times. Perhaps the most obscure Easter egg here are the big gym toys in the store, which happens to be one of Mattel's earliest famous toy lines that goes all the way back to the 70s. When Adam finally finds the sword inside the store, it's seen placed in the hands of a statue, and that statue belongs to Torak. The true fans of the franchise will know that Torak is the name of the earliest concept version of He-Man, and I love how the director paid attention to such forgotten history of the series. He-Man's transformation deserves to be appreciated. Let me begin by saying that I'm happy with the casting choice for Adam, aka He-Man, because he fits the role perfectly. But the creators have ensured that the fanboys who have grown up watching the cartoons wouldn't be disappointed by the big moment when he first transforms into He-Man on screen. This happens during his fight with Trapjaw, and the scene is worth savoring. He says the words, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power!" And these are the exact words from the intro of the original cartoon. It looks all the more appealing because you can notice Castle Grayskull appearing behind him in the smoke. Beastman doesn't appear as often as you would think. I mean, I'm not complaining about this because I understand the compulsion here. Beastman is a character enhanced with computer-generated effects for the movie, and I'm sure that every time he appeared, it cost the creators a fortune. This is a big-budget movie anyway, and this is probably the least they could do by keeping him away for most of the time. Now, I understand why this might disappoint some of the fans, given that he was actually Skeletor's closest henchman in the cartoon, but some changes aren't really choices. Teela's true origins remain hidden. If you go by the cartoon canon, Teela has a very interesting backstory. She's actually the daughter of the Sorceress, given to Duncan to be raised as his adopted daughter. This entire story arc is missing in the movie because we don't really get to see any part of her connection with the Sorceress. And I'm assuming that the creators decided to go against it because it would derail the chain of narrative. As it is, the movie's of a fairly longer duration for a film of this genre, and they probably didn't want to extend it further by adding an extra bit of trivia that wouldn't really add value to the plot. Nevertheless, I'm quite happy with how Teela has been portrayed in the movie because she really is an asset for Adam and his ally. She's one of the best fighters, just as good as Duncan, and there's an adorable romantic hint between her and Adam that also keeps the chemistry alive. Also, the movie hits a home run with the warrior goddess reference when Adam reveals that he had given her this nickname during his time on Earth. It's straight out of the Toyline subtitle, and I think it's a fun touch. The major Easter eggs from the post-credits scenes. The movie gets not one, but 3 post-credits scenes. And while the final one featuring Evil-Lyn and hinting at Skeletor being alive is probably a clear nod to a sequel, the other 2 have very interesting Easter eggs. For starters, the first cameo brings in Orko, the adorable floating wizard and He-Man's trusted ally in this universe. He's remained absent from the movie, much to my disappointment, but it was fun to see him appear at the end of the movie with a moral lesson like in the good old cartoon show. But perhaps the most important introduction of a character in the post-credits scene is that of Adora, aka She-Ra, the long-lost sister of Adam. The scene suggests that Queen Marlena still remembers her fondly, and back on Earth, she's probably now done with her service to the evil horde, ready to take up the mantle of a superhero. I know the box office reports don't sound promising enough for a sequel to take place, but if it does, I would be thrilled if She-Ra and He-Man appeared together in a movie. The Roton and Sky Sled are really cool additions. I knew about this from the trailer, and the movie just confirmed that there are some really cool rides for both the hero and the villain. While Skeletor can be seen sporting the classic Toyline vehicle like the Roton, He-Man's not too far behind with his iconic Sky Sled. There are some really badass aerial combat sequences that'll make you sit back and wonder, and these are the scenes that make the movie worth watching on the big screen. Other than these 2, you'll notice that Skeletor uses a vehicle called the Collector when he heads to Castle Grayskull to reactivate the Power Sword, and this also had a toy version back in the day. Even Teela's ship, Talon Fighter, is a classic vehicle from Mattel's toy line. Adam's choice of pronouns on Earth is not random. This is very easy to miss out, but it's got a lot of significance when you think about the theme of the movie. The Masters of the Universe 2026 is all about a new era of masculinity, where it's not just about testosterone-fueled violence, but a more responsible handling of powers. Adam turns into He-Man and fights only when he has no other choice left, and he always tries to sue for peace, even with Skeletor after all that he's done. He serves a wake-up call for the likes of Duncan and even King Randor, who previously didn't think of him as the ideal man because of his ways. However, on Earth, Adam uses the pronouns he, him, which is a masculine pronoun, indicating that he's never tried to avoid his manhood. In fact, another funny reference comes when he reveals at the end of the movie that he secretly called himself He-Man back on Earth, and I think that effectively sums up what the movie tries to convey. Real masculinity comes in all shapes, sizes, and personality. Also, it is worth noting here that Adam sports a new look in the movie, where his shirt actually matches his Prince look from the cartoon. Some iconic He-Man villains make an appearance. See, this is only a movie with a limited runtime, and therefore the scope to explore too many characters is obviously limited. But I really appreciate how the narrative still includes some of the key characters from our childhood as the henchmen fighting for Skeletor. You can see Gygor, who has a more creature-like appearance with spikes growing from his skin. This is, however, very different from his original story from the toy line, where Gygor was a blacksmith who became trapped inside spiked armor and he couldn't remove it. The movie seems to disregard this completely here, as he has no armor. As for Karg, there's a clear inspiration drawn from the 1987 movie, because there, Karg was shown in a similar monstrous look. I was delighted to see Goatman in the roster because he's one of the more underrated He-Man villains. If you go by the toy line narrative, Goatman, the strange fellow with horns like goats, was actually controlled by the hypnotic powers of Beastman. Of course, you see nothing like that in the movie. Trapjaw has a couple of important combat scenes, and I think the importance given to him among the villains is fair, because back in the day, he used to be one of the most sought-after action figures because of the interchangeable weapon arms. The movie also brings that into the picture when you see him in action. Another noticeable change that I noticed was for the character Triclops. Unlike his 3 different eyes that allow him to see far away, have night vision, and see through objects, here he just seems to have the first ability. There are moments where he spots He-Man and his allies from a distance, and this helps him warn Skeletor and his forces in advance. The familiar villains are met with a line of familiar heroes. When I say that the movie is nostalgia at its peak, man, I mean it. You don't just have the familiar villains making their presence felt, as even Prince Adam has loyal fighters that you'll recognize from the toy line or the cartoon. I've already covered the likes of Teela, Duncan, and Dian, but there are many others who join Adam in his fight against Skeletor. My favorite among the lot is Roboto, and in the film, she's an old battle robot reprogrammed by Duncan. What's interesting here is that in the toy lore, Roboto was built entirely by Duncan. The cartoon narrative changed this and revealed that Roboto came from another planet, and I guess the movie tries to do a balancing act, keeping the best of both worlds. When a repaired Roboto appears in the final scene, you can see the internal gears, and this is a closer look to the original action figure. Among the others, you have Fisto, Mekaneck, and Ram Man. Now, the interesting thing about these characters is that these are not their real name. It's Adam who named them as a child back on Earth based on their powers and ability. For instance, Fisto got the name because of his powerful metal fist that packs quite a punch. Ram Man is called so because he legit launches himself like a battering ram and destroys his enemy. And finally, Mekaneck has a telescopic neck that can be extended and used as a swinging weapon, and it's only fitting that even He-Man has a made-up name in the movie given by Adam to himself. Snake Mountain and Gygor is a really smart reference. A movie that features Skeletor as the primary villain wouldn't have been complete without a shot of Snake Mountain, would it? Of course, we see Snake Mountain when the heroes travel there, and everyone knows that this is the traditional lair of Skeletor and his evil minion. But what really caught my attention here, aside from how cool Snake Mountain looks, is the stuffed gorilla inside, which is actually Gygor, the gladiator gorilla. This figure was designed, but it was never released in the original toy line, and it came out many years later under the Masters of the Universe Classics line. The presence of such obscure characters from the universe tells you that the director is a fan who knows everything there is to know from the original lore. Can we see Stratos going ahead? Well, the Masters of the Universe is not all about He-Man. You have characters like She-Ra and Stratos, and the latter is from another part of Eternia called Avion. Yeah, you're right, this is the same part where the news of some trouble comes from, and Adam heads there riding on Battle Cat. If there's ever a sequel to follow up on the brilliance of this film, I hope they can build on the continuity and bring in someone like Stratos. At least dragons are a confirmed part of the universe. If you look at Prince Adam's opening narration scene closely, you'll see a dragon fly by. This confirms the existence of dragons in this universe, which is not entirely averse to the existing lore. This might be the only dragon we see, but it's still enough. The choice of music is remarkable. The background score and song choices in Masters of the Universe really hit the spot, and I think a lot of it has to do with the epic guitar sound throughout the movie, courtesy of Brian May, the guitarist from Queen. You'll see an interesting choice of music, such as when Princes of the Universe by Queen plays in the background during the prison break scene. And you might also remember how the song was used in the Highlander TV series. There's another Highlander reference when Adam is arrested on Earth for taking the sword from the store. The cops joke about him being Highlander because of his obsession with the sword. The extended and comical Skeletor laughs are intentional. I still remember Skeletor's sinister laugh from the first edition of the Masters of the Universe like it was yesterday. The iconic villain was known for this memorable laugh, and that's hilarious and creepy at the same time. In a fun nod to this and all the memes over the years, the movie keeps a moment with this extended laugh as his minions wait awkwardly for him to finish. Also, I like how Skeletor continues to abuse and ridicule his minions for their incompetence, just like he always did in the original cartoon. The portal created by the Sorceress is a nice touch. Do you remember the scene from the movie where the Sorceress opens up a portal and sends Adam to Earth along with the Power Sword just before Skeletor can get to them? In this scene, she creates a swirling energy portal for the young boy, and this is a classic throwback to something similar in the cartoon. Not to mention, it has a crazy visual similarity with Marvel's Thor and the Bifrost and their dimensional travel network. Later in the film, the Sorceress appears in her falcon form named Zor, which is again quite innovative from the director. I did not expect Pig Boy. The movie clearly acknowledges the 1987 original film heavily. From the cameo of Dolph Lundgren to many design similarities, the respect is obvious. I still didn't expect to see Pigman in the movie, who serves as a lowly servant for Skeletor. This is actually a callback character from the 1987 film where Pig Boy was played by the winner of a contest from Mattel to appear in the movie, and it was played by an 8-year-old boy named Richard Sponder. Why on earth is Merman standing with the Eternian? My eyes might be betraying me on this one, but I swear I thought it was him. I'm talking about the climactic scene where all the warriors of Eternia are gathered for fun banter. As Adam heads out following the news of trouble, you could spot Merman in the background, who's known to be a villain allied with Skeletor. Man, I wonder what he's doing there, and maybe an explainer would have helped. I know you may have spotted many other such Easter eggs that might have missed my attention here in this video, and I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know if you think that the movie deserves a sequel to continue the magical journey. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, and please ring that notification bell so that when we put out more He-Man and the Masters of the Universe content, you're notified. Be safe, have a great day, and as always, stay marvelous.